So let's get to the segment that Mr. Laughing My Head Off just referred to and said that he really liked. And that is Inside the Pictures. And so we'll take a look at a few photos and we will talk about what these photos are, what I interpret these photos to be, and also give you a little bit of background on some of these photos. So the first one I wanted to take a look at here was AGG going up for the rock in practice. And this is what we thought we were getting from the Gandhi man, Antonio Gandy-Golden, when we drafted him. A big physical receiver that could win in the contested catch department and come down with the 50-50 balls and make plays. But he hasn't really been able to do this consistently in practice. Just listening to a lot of the beat writers talk about Antonio Gandy-Golden and listen to Ron Rivera talk about him, the consensus is guy's uber talented. He's a big guy, as you can see here in the photo, has a unique skill set, but right now he's just not getting it. It's not all coming together. And that also includes him going up for the football. And this is the thing. When you're out there thinking, and I talked about this with Jimmy Moreland earlier, and how it's just hard to function at maximum capacity when your brain is racing. And so it impacts other areas of your game. And this is a guy that probably is able to snatch the football out of the air with somebody draped on him like this in his sleep. He did it at Liberty, all the time. And yet he's struggling with that in practice right now. And I think it's because his brain is overloaded. And he's a smart guy. We know this to be a fact. But it's a lot coming from Liberty, where they didn't run a route tree. There wasn't this extensive playbook. There wasn't a lot coming to him at once. He's got a lot to learn. And Rivera said, look, this is a guy that has a lot to learn. He's got to figure out where to line up. He's got to understand when he's supposed to go in motion. And, this is a guy, Rivera, I talked about that mic'd up segment with Rivera. And he was talking to AGG and he was telling him, hey, look, dude, don't allow these guys to hand fight with you at the line of scrimmage and get you off of your route. Like, don't sit there and hand fight with them. You're a big guy. Get off of that and keep going and get into your route. So there's a lot of things, a lot of nuances that he's just not picking up at this point. And I said all of that to say this. He's not where I would have liked him to be at this point. But again, that's with me expediting the process out of necessity with no Kelvin Harmon. He wasn't supposed to be a guy we were relying on this year for a lot of production. And I need to rewire my brain into the way that I thought about him when Harmon was healthy, in the sense of he doesn't need to be a guy that we look to for 45 catches this year. If he gets us 30 grabs this year, we should be excited about that. If he has 25 grabs and 5 of them are touchdowns, I would be elated with that kind of production from him. Anything north of 30 catches, anything north of 4 touchdowns, and I think it's a successful year for AGG. But I said all of that to say this. You guys need to make sure you're taking it slow with him and not putting too much on his plate, because he's not ready for that as it stands right now. But this is what we drafted him for right here as you look at this photo. As we get to the next picture, this is Greg Stroman holding it up. And that's what you're taught to do when you make a play. When you get that pick, hold it up. And Greg Stroman is a guy that I think has really solidified a roster spot this offseason. He was one of the guys I had given up on. I told you that there were a few guys that I had to rewire my brain, wipe the slate clean on. Jaron Christian was a guy that I thought was nothing more than a swing tackle. Now I'm anxious to see him get an opportunity as the starting left tackle. Troy Apke was a guy that I wasn't sure was ever going to be anything more than Reed Doughty on this defense. Now he's going to get an opportunity to be a starter this year. Greg Stroman was another guy that I had all but given up on. As a matter of fact, at least with the other two that I just mentioned, and Jaron Christian and Troy Apke, I expected them to be on the roster. I didn't even expect Greg Stroman to be on the roster this year. I was done with Greg Stroman, as a matter of fact. And now all of a sudden, Greg Stroman is a guy that's been making play after play after play this camp, and you can't help but notice him. And so not only is he going to make the football team, but I think Greg Stroman is a guy that could potentially be in the mix at the cornerback position, like a guy that we're truly relying on out wide in the nickel, all over the place. And I think he also can help you as a return man if need be, because he was such a good one at Virginia Tech as well. So I really think Greg Stroman is a guy that is going to get a great opportunity this year, and I'm hoping he makes the most of it. But Greg Stroman, that's a guy that's been making plays, and you see here him holding one up as he made a play in the back of the end zone on an interception here. As we get to the next photo, I had talked about Logan Thomas making plays and him and Dwayne starting to really have a rapport with one another. And this is one of the more impressive TD strikes from Dwayne. As you can see, Dwayne all the way in the back of the photo, kind of out of focus, as he lets this laser go to Logan Thomas, back of the end zone. Thomas and Haskins have hooked up for 6 touchdowns in the last 4 days of practice. They have been in sync with one another, and this is the last of the 6 touchdowns. Back of the end zone, touchdown strike from Haskins. Beautifully thrown ball, well timed, everything. Back foot hit the ground. Saw Thomas in the back of the end zone, threw a laser shot, end zone coverage. And here's part 2 of that grab. And you see Troy Apke disappointed off to the side there that he wasn't able to get there in time. You see Landon Collins coming over. The real question here is, had this been a real game situation, does he hold on to the rock here? Looks a little fragile in his hands. He's bracing for contact. If he was getting hit here by Landon Collins, does this football come out? I'm not sure. But strong hands on the catch. He brings it in. And Logan Thomas seems to be a guy that they're really excited about at the tight end position. And we'll see if he is able to not only be our number 1 tight end, because that's not hard to do, but if he's able to surprise us and ascend as our number 1 tight end and have us looking at the tight end position differently this year, because coming into the season, we just assumed that tight end would be something that we would need next offseason. But if he's better than advertised, and they also get something out of the ex-Ohio State product, we could not be as bad off at tight end as once thought. And let me say this, Rivera also said something interesting about the tight end position. He talked about 3 tight ends in particular when asked about the tight ends. He said, we got 3 guys that, bring something to the table, and they're all sort of different in what they bring to the table. And I thought it was interesting that he singled out 3 tight ends because he was just asked about the tight end position as a whole. And he made it his business to single out Logan Thomas as probably the best combination of the tight ends in terms of blocking and catching the football, and he's probably the best pass catcher that we have right now. He then talked about Marcus Ball being the most athletically gifted of all the tight ends. And then he talked about Jeremy Sprinkle being the best in terms of blocking and being the biggest of the tight ends in terms of his weight. So I don't know if I should read too much into that, but he may have been telling us who the 3 tight ends that they're going to keep on the roster are. He may have just told us without telling us that those are the 3 that he would like to keep. As we get to the next photo, So I told you I felt bad about omitting Cam Sims earlier. Shame on me, because he's been one of the true standouts in camp. And this photo is from one of his best plays, and it's one of the best plays of camp to this point. I think this catch, Terry McLaurin's catch, and the Dontrell Inman catch in the end zone are the three best offensive plays that I've seen this training camp. And I'd say Sims' catch is probably number one in terms of level of difficulty. I think the prettiest and the most gaudy and flashy one was the Terry catch with the kick at the end. But if you got to see this play, Sims goes up. And I mean, he gets up. And this ball was from Kyle Allen. So it was high. Back of the end zone where nobody else could get it. It was top shelf. All right. And Sims went up, climbed the ladder, went and got this thing back of the end zone. You see 1 foot down. That second foot, he's going to do, you see him looking down at the line in front of him. He's going to do a tremendous job of getting that second foot that's in the air right now down, toe tapping it, and it's a catch. And look how excited our coach is, our DB's coach, who's back there screaming at him, Chris Harris was. He was jumping up and down, and he actually went and picked Sims up and told him, that's a hell of a catch, man. And that's the DB's coach. That's not the receiver's coach telling him that. So that tells you how good of a catch this was back of the end zone. Cam Sims has been a standout. Rivera has said as much. And I think this guy is playing his way onto this roster. And so I really think Cam Sims is going to make this football team as we progress to the next photo. I wanted to talk about Reuben Foster right now for a second, because I think a lot of you assume that Reuben Foster since he's been medically cleared, is going to be playing a lot and going to be a factor, and you're expecting him to be a factor right out of the gate. And I titled these next two photos, these next two pictures, the company that Reuben keeps. So I want you to look around at who's on the field with Reuben Foster right now. And so I'll help you out with this. I know you can read. You can see numbers. You can read. But let's look at the company that Reuben Foster is keeping on this particular snap. So he's obviously in with the second team defense. If this is in fact the second team defense, this might even be the third team defense, because you're looking at a bunch of guys. But this is Reuben Foster here, obviously, with the knee brace on. It says Foster on the back, so I'm not telling you anything. Foster's Australian for beer. Then you see Khaleke Hudson right next to him, rookie out of Michigan, 5th round selection by this football team, 5th or 6th round selection. And then you see Ryan B., defensive lineman here. So these are guys that we not going to make the football team. Khaleke Hudson, more likely than not going to make the football team. He'll probably be on the practice squad. Ryan B., another guy, probably won't make this football team. Probably will be on the practice squad. And so you look around at who he's on the field. Yeah, Cole Holcomb is on the field. But Cole Holcomb is just getting work, you know. But Reuben Foster, and this is what I've been hearing from a lot of people, that Reuben Foster hasn't been getting any reps with the first team. None. No first team reps whatsoever. He's barely even getting second team reps. And when he is getting second team reps, they're second team reps against the second team offense, not second team reps against the first team offense. And then he's getting a lot of third team mop-up reps against the second team O. So I just want you to temper your expectations for Reuben Foster, because I've already mentioned to you that this is the same guy that's come out and said, I'm still trying to gain confidence in my knee. I'm not where I need to be mentally. Physically, I've been told that my knee is fine, but I still have to cut and run and jump and get hit and do a lot of the things that I'm still not mentally comfortable with on this knee yet. And so it's showing in practice. He's not showing the explosiveness. He's not showing all of the things that got us excited about him when we first got him from San Francisco. It's going to be a while is essentially what I'm trying to tell you. But I'm not going to stop there. Let's get to the next photo because I want you to see the company that Reuben continues to keep on the football field. So obviously, Reuben's on the field here. This is Reuben Foster here, trying to make a tackle of Bryce Love, right? So look around on the field, all right? Look around at the numbers of the players. And that's the beauty of having the helmets have the numbers on the side of them, that you can identify players. Another good thing is, and I know this is ancillary and a non sequitur, but you don't mix up your helmets. It's easy. If your number's on your helmet, you know, you can put your helmet down anywhere and you don't have to guess whether this is your helmet or not. But that's no here nor there. Let's look at the numbers of these players around and let's run through the list of these guys that are on the field right now during this rep. Do you guys know who number 61 is? I bet a lot of you don't, and you shouldn't. If you've been following this team for a long enough period, then you know that's Timon Paris. No Pumbaa around, but that is Timon Paris, number 61, not our first team rep. Okay, that's the second team rep. Who's number 72 on the defensive line, you ask, right? Great question. I've told you who this was. It's a rookie, James Smith-Williams. That's not a first team rep. That's a second team rep. You look around and you look at some of the other numbers. You know who number 50 is? I'm pretty sure you don't. You know why? Because that's Jared Norris, a Carolina Panthers special teams standout that quietly was brought over with Ron Rivera early in the offseason. That's not a first-team rep. That's not a guy that we're not sure of if he's going to make the roster or not. Money is banking that he is because he's a special team standout and Rivera loves him, but we'll see. All right, you look at number 79. I bet any amount of money none of you guys know who number 79 is. You shouldn't, okay? But if you said Paul Adams, ding, ding, ding. Now, Paul Adams is a tackle that we signed a long time ago in the offseason. I can't tell you if he's second team or if he's third team. All right? My guess is that's a third team offensive lineman. All right? But like I said, bottom line is you look at this photo and you see the company that Reuben is keeping, and you have to understand that he's a ways away from being the Reuben Foster that we thought we were getting. And here's the thing. He doesn't have a ton of time to prove that he's the Reuben Foster of old. It's not like we've got Reuben for another year or two. This is it. This is it. The last year of Reuben. This is it. This could be it. Because remember, we didn't pick up his fifth-year option, and rightfully so. So there is no fifth year. This is it. If he doesn't prove to be the guy that we think he could be, it could be one and done for Reuben on the field for this football team. We'll see what happens with Reuben Foster. I just thought I'd point that out to you guys right now. We move on to the next photo, and it's our last one of the night. And this is the pick six that we talked about at the end of practice, the last practice that they had. The practice where I talked about Ron staying after with Dwayne and J.D. McKissick on this route, and those two deciding that they wanted to work on the route, and Ron sticking around and giving them pointers on what needed to happen, and Ron essentially telling Dwayne, look, it was the right decision. You were late, and the ball placement was horrible. And this is essentially what he was talking about. Before we get to the ball placement and where it should have been and all of that good jazz, I want to point something out to you guys and bring this up. I want you to look at this red line here for a second. All right. This red line is not out of bounds. And I don't know if you've heard this before. If you've played football, if you've been a wide receiver, then you know exactly what this red line is. For those of you who haven't, let me explain what this red line is. So in the NFL, you hear this all the time, and that's guys running the red line and guys keeping that red line. And what that red line is a receiver giving his quarterback enough space to the outside to drop the football over his outside shoulder. So if you straddle that red line, the quarterback should have ample space to drop the football over your outside shoulder and you still be able to get your feet down in bounds. If you don't keep that red line, if you're inside that red line, all right, and that means you're closer to out of bounds, and now you're restricting the amount of space the quarterback has to throw the football over your outside shoulder. So that red line is not out of bounds. It's a line that's put on the field. It's an imaginary line that the players need to be able to visualize on the field when they're running their routes. You are not, as a receiver, you are told repeatedly not to allow DBs to bully you off of the red line. You are supposed to run the route and put yourself in a position where that red line exists and you give your quarterback an opportunity to put it on your outside shoulder. So that's what that red line is. So I wanted to point that out right off the bat. But anyway, you look at this next arrow that I'm going to put, and that's where this ball is. That ball on an outbreaking route cannot be thrown inside. It cannot happen. It should never happen. If you're going to miss on a pass to the outside, it needs to be outside. All right. Anything inside on an outbreaking route and you're asking for trouble. Anything late to the outside and you're asking for trouble. So this is a play where Dwayne was late and he was inside. All right. And so you pay for late when you're going outside. You pay for late and inside when you should be going outside. This is a great break on the football by Landon Collins here. And great anticipation. But he should have been beaten on this route. And this ball should have been thrown to the outside. This ball should have been right here. All right. This ball should have been out here where J.D. McKissic is able to stretch his arms out and go and get that football. Landon Collins would not have been able to undercut that ball, and you're not talking about a pick six. Instead, that ball is too far inside, and it's for the taking. And so it's a great teachable moment for Dwayne, and I love the fact that he and J.D. McKissic stayed after practice, and Rivera gave them some pointers. And again, I said this earlier on one of my previous shows, but Ron Rivera isn't staying after practice with a couple of guys that aren't going to either start or be on the roster. So again, J.D. McKissic and Dwayne Haskins, like I said, Dwayne's your starter and J.D. McKissic is making this football team. I think they have plans for J.D. McKissic. So I thought that was an interesting photo as well.